Hello and welcome to this video on the real estate crash. Real estate is an essential aspect of the economy, and the market for property ownership, rentals, and sales is massive. However, like any market, the real estate market can be subject to fluctuations and volatility. One such period of volatility was the real estate crash, which had significant impacts on the economy and the lives of many individuals. The real estate crash, also known as the housing bubble burst or the subprime mortgage crisis, refers to a period of time when the value of real estate significantly decreased, leading to widespread foreclosures, job losses, and economic instability. In this video, we will explore the causes and impacts of the real estate crash in detail. We will discuss the factors that led to the crash, its economic and social impacts, and the lessons learned from the experience. Our goal is to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the real estate crash, its significance, and how it affects individuals and the economy as a whole. So, let's dive in. What is a real estate crash? Real estate crash is a term used to describe a significant decline in the value of real estate. It typically results in a period of economic instability, foreclosures, and job losses. A real estate crash differs from a market correction or downturn in that it is more severe and lasts for an extended period. Historically, there have been several instances of real estate crashes. One of the most notable examples is the housing crisis of 2008 in the United States. In the years leading up to the crisis, there was a surge in home purchases due to relaxed lending standards and low interest rates. This led to a housing bubble, where home prices were significantly inflated. However, when the market eventually corrected itself, the bubble burst, leading to a widespread decline in property values and a surge in foreclosures. Another example of a real estate crash was the Japanese property bubble of the 1980s. During this period, the Japanese economy experienced a period of rapid growth, which led to an inflated real estate market. However, when the bubble burst in the early 1990s, property values declined rapidly, leading to a prolonged period of economic stagnation. A real estate crash refers to a significant decline in the value of real estate that leads to economic instability, job losses, and foreclosures. It differs from a market correction or downturn in its severity and duration. Historical examples such as the 2008 housing crisis in the U.S. and the Japanese property bubble of the 1980s demonstrate the impacts of real estate crashes on the economy and society. Causes of the real estate crash. The real estate crash of 2008 in the United States and other crashes like it are typically the result of a combination of factors. Let's take a closer look at some of the main causes of real estate crashes. One significant factor that contributed to the 2008 housing crisis was irresponsible lending practices. Banks and other financial institutions offered mortgages to individuals who were unlikely to be able to afford them. These subprime mortgages were often sold to investors as securities, leading to a surge in demand for them. When these mortgages started to default, it had a ripple effect on the economy, as banks and other institutions that held these securities began to suffer losses. Another factor that contributed to the housing bubble was speculation. Investors, both individual and institutional, began buying up properties, expecting that they would continue to increase in value. This led to a surge in demand and, consequently, a further increase in prices, creating a bubble. Overvalued properties were also a significant factor in the 2008 housing crisis. Properties were being bought and sold for more than they were worth. In some cases, properties were being appraised for more than their actual value, leading to inflated prices. These factors interacted with each other to create a bubble that eventually burst. As the value of properties continued to increase, more and more people were drawn into the market. However, when the bubble eventually burst, many of these investors were left with properties that were worth less than what they had paid for them. This, in turn, led to a wave of foreclosures, causing a significant decline in the value of real estate and a sharp drop in the overall economy. The real estate crash was caused by a combination of factors, including irresponsible lending practices, speculation, and overvalued properties. These factors interacted with each other to create a bubble that eventually burst, leading to significant economic impacts. Impacts of the real estate crash. The real estate crash had significant economic and social impacts, both in the United States and other countries where similar crashes occurred. Let's take a closer look at these impacts. One of the most significant impacts of the real estate crash was the surge in foreclosures. Many homeowners who had taken out subprime mortgages were unable to keep up with their payments and were forced to default. This, in turn, led to a wave of foreclosures, causing significant financial losses for both individuals and financial institutions. Job losses were another significant impact of the real estate crash. As the economy began to decline, many businesses were forced to lay off workers, leading to a rise in unemployment. The construction industry, in particular, was hit hard, with many builders and contractors forced out of work. Declining property values were another impact of the real estate crash. As properties were foreclosed on and sold off, it led to a sharp drop in the overall value of real estate. This, in turn, had a significant impact on the economy as property taxes declined and consumer spending fell. The impacts of the real estate crash were felt differently across different demographic groups and geographic regions. Low-income individuals and communities of color were disproportionately impacted by the crash, as they were more likely to have taken out subprime mortgages and were more vulnerable to job losses. Additionally, the impacts of the crash were felt more acutely in areas that had experienced significant growth and development during the housing boom. The real estate crash had significant economic and social impacts, including foreclosures, job losses, and declining property values. These impacts were felt differently across different demographic groups and geographic regions, with low-income individuals and communities of color being disproportionately affected. Lessons learned from the real estate crash. The real estate crash of 2008 taught policymakers and individuals several valuable lessons. Let's take a closer look at some of these lessons. One of the most important lessons learned from the real estate crash was the importance of responsible lending practices. Lenders and financial institutions now understand the importance of only lending to borrowers who can realistically afford to repay their loans. This has led to stricter lending standards and greater scrutiny of borrowers' credit histories and financial circumstances. Another lesson learned from the real estate crash was the need for regulations to prevent bubbles. Policymakers now recognize the importance of monitoring the real estate market and intervening if they detect signs of a bubble forming. This can include implementing stricter lending regulations and adjusting interest rates to control demand. The real estate industry has also changed since the crash. Alternative financing options, such as crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending, have become increasingly popular, providing borrowers with more options for financing their properties. Additionally, there has been increased scrutiny on property valuations, with more emphasis placed on ensuring that properties are accurately assessed and valued. The real estate crash taught policymakers and individuals several valuable lessons, including the importance of responsible lending practices and the need for regulations to prevent bubbles. The real estate industry has also changed since the crash, with the rise of alternative financing options and increased scrutiny on property valuations. By applying these lessons, we can work to prevent future real estate crashes and promote a more stable and sustainable housing market. We have explored the causes and impacts of the real estate crash, including irresponsible lending practices, speculation, and overvalued properties. We have discussed how the crash led to foreclosures, job losses, and declining property values, impacting different demographic groups and geographic regions differently. The real estate crash taught us valuable lessons, such as the importance of responsible lending and regulations to prevent bubbles. The industry has also changed since the crash, with alternative financing options and increased scrutiny on property valuations. It is essential to understand the causes and impacts of the real estate crash, as it can help us make informed decisions about buying or selling property. We must stay informed about the real estate market and make responsible decisions to prevent future real estate crashes. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found this video informative.